Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have ESFP versus ISFP. And so Brady, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Hi, I'm Brady. You may have seen me here before. I'm an ESFP. Username is Censors Uncensored. I'm working on a blog project, kind of slowly but surely, from a censor's point of view for MBTI. And yeah, just really happy to be here. And I had once mistyped as an ISFP, so I'm interested to cover that with y'all.
Yay, so you're an expert in this topic. And
yeah, an expert in not being an ISFP, yes.
You're an expert in this form of confusion.
Yes, got that right.
And Kristin?
Hi everyone, my name's Kristin. I run a YouTube channel called Dear Kristin, and I've been on here before. Love coming on these panels. And I don't have a lot of ISFPs in my life, so I'm excited to chat to the ISFPs in this discussion. Nice to meet you all.
Excellent. And Jamila?
And I'm Jamila, and clearly I'm an ISFP. I never thought I was an ESFP. Actually, no. Before I really knew what type was, the loose terms introvert and extrovert, I didn't know which one I identified with. I would ask like my closest family and friends, and most of them would be like, "You're an introvert, obviously." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But anyway, that's me.
The opposite happened with Brady. So Brady thought he was an introvert, and then people around him were telling him he was an extrovert. It's like, you've got to be kidding us, Brady. You talk so much.
Very clear extrovert. It's great.
Yeah, it's excellent. We love that about you.
Well, thank you.
And Sheila?
Okay, I'm Sheila, and I also have a YouTube channel, which I haven't posted in almost a year, which feels crazy how time flies. And, what else about me? I'm an ISFP, and I also love coming on these panels to learn more about all the people out there. So it's going to be interesting to see the differences between the ESFP and the ISFP. So sit back, grab your popcorn, and enjoy.
Yeah. Sounds like entertainment. And Jason?
My name's Jason. I have a YouTube channel also called My ISFP Journey. I love personality type theory in practicality because I want to have good relationships with other human beings, and I feel like a huge part of that is understanding them and being able to communicate with them. So understanding any personality type to me is just a massively important aspect of life. And also it's a big deal, I think, when it comes to relationships and raising kids, being able to understand, what's going on in their minds a little bit better, I think can make us better parents, better significant others, better, children and brothers, sisters, whatever. So it's a big deal to me.
Yeah, and it's a big deal to us too. So it's glad that we can all band together and show the practical uses of type. And so there are some wonderful YouTube channels here. There's Dear Kristin, there's My ISFP Journey, there's Sheila, and there's Jamila's singing channel where she sings like a goddess into your ears, and you're eternally blessed in your eardrums. Kristin has amazing skits, Jason has wonderful cognitive function material, and Sheila looks like all forms of beautiful, both in her appearance and also in her speech. So go ahead and check them out. And Brady has a project coming up called Censors Uncensored. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And hi, everyone. My name is Joyce, and I'm a certified MBTI practitioner, and I facilitate the instrument and organizations. I also conduct typing sessions, too. It helps pay rent. And yeah, differences between the ESFP and ISFP personality. What are some blaringly obvious points you'd like to just throw out there? Or just any point? What are some things that you find to be different about these two types? Before we hopped on this call, it seems like the ESFPs were less comfortable with silences. And so with every silence, they felt the urge to fill it in.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty darn accurate, because I know that whenever I'm in a group and people seem uncomfortable, That's like, I want to make them feel better and or at least feel heard or included. So if there's someone quiet, I like to kind of see what they're thinking about. Not like calling them out in front of everybody because I'm not a jerk, but like, just get to know what they're thinking. And yeah, I definitely have a hard time with silence.
Yeah, of course, what can end up happening is that you go into panic mode and start speaking before you've even realized what you're going to say. It can just end up not making sense, or
oh god, yeah,
the amount of times. Woo.
Do you find that you have that uncomfortability with activity as well? I have an ESFP daughter, and I feel like she's always got to be on the move. And like, I'm perfectly happy to just like sit still in one place and do nothing. And she is not content to do that.
Oof, doing nothing. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so I don't have to necessarily be like moving my legs, but if I'm not moving my legs, I need to be doing something with my hands. So like, either need to be playing a video game, drawing, writing, journaling, playing around on my phone, roughhousing with my kids, whatever. But I don't like just sitting and doing nothing. Even if I'm consuming something, I want to be doing something at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same. Like, if it's a long conversation with someone, I'm a fidgeter. Like, I'll have to be playing with something on the table. Otherwise, I just find myself like zoning out or something. And I can totally sit down and like do like intentional journaling or like sit on my phone or something like that, or have a conversation. But to actually sit and just exist and like be in my head or something, no. That's probably a huge difference between ESFPs and ISFPs there, is that our world is so external and we need that external feedback of some sort. But you guys are just, your world is internal, right? Like your main world.
Right. I'm seeing you guys watching you guys listen, and you're just like listening, where I'm like moving my fingers around. Like, it's like almost kind of embarrassing while Kristin's talking.
The extroverts are always interacting or doing something externally oriented, getting feedback, like what Brady was talking about. It's kind of like playing dodgeball with the world. It's kind of like extroverts like to throw the dodgeball and get it thrown back to them. They kind of need some sort of back and forth with the external world, whereas introverts are more comfortable, even if that back and forth's not immediately there all the time. So that's one differentiation you can set.
Yeah, I'm definitely more comfortable with silence. Something like this where, it's a group thing. I'll kind of sit back and watch and see who wants to take the ball, and I'm fine giving the ball to somebody else. But if, I'm in a group and nobody's throwing the ball, then I'll step up and feel like, okay, I got to take that role and be a little more extroverted then. So I can be that person, but in general, I'm totally fine with silence and sitting in complete silence, or even when somebody asks me a question, I'll pause and think about it before I can like come out. And like my husband, he's an extrovert, and he definitely is like wants the answer right away. Like if I'm like even 2 minutes in, or 30 seconds thinking, he's like, "Hey, Miss No Response Girl, are you going to respond?" And I'm like, I'm thinking. So I think, and he's so uncomfortable with the silence. So he's made that observation with me that he's just like, "Oh, you're just fine with the silence." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm comfy with the silence." I don't know.
ESFPs, you'll notice this immediacy and this desire to sometimes speed things up to make things move a little faster. There's just this quickness with response time sometimes, and noticing how other people might be moving at a slower pace than them.
Oh, for sure.
If I have a main flaw as a parent, it's that. I'm really impatient. Like, come on, let's go, and unless it's first thing in the morning. But yeah, no, it's definitely a problem. That SETE wants to do. Doesn't want to wait and think about it.
Yeah.
I wish I could stop, like Sheila said, and like think about my answers to things, but I'll just start talking and then I feel like I'm like, oh, the person wants an answer straight away, but they're totally probably okay with waiting. If I need to, recently in the recent years, I've been like, okay, I'm going to stop and think about this. And I'll say to the person, if it's okay, can I stop and think about this? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, what? But yeah, I feel like I need to answer immediately. Sorry, Jamila, you were going to talk and then
No, I love what you said, because for me, it's literally the exact opposite. Like, I always, or I more so recently have been like, okay, try to think of something fast, because I feel like I lose people's attention. Like, people, I'm more convinced that people they aren't patient, and that's fine. I feel like really it's me. Like, they just ask a question and they want the answer. Like, even, I recorded with Joyce a couple of days ago, and the question was asked, how are you? Like, even questions like that, I was saying, like, I actually want to sit and think, or not how are you, but how was your weekend? If somebody like asked something like that, I'm like genuinely wanting to sit back and reflect, like, okay, what did I do this weekend? Because I don't want to say that it was good if it wasn't. And then it's like some people really don't care. Like, it's really just the formality. But even then it's like, well, what do I say if it's not authentic to me? So then it's just kind of like this weird thing. So for me, it's been more of a challenge to try to think of something to fill up the space, especially in small talk, I feel like, because people lose interest and things like that. So it's funny that you feel like you have like the opposite experience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll just immediately say something, even if it isn't true. Like, I answer that question, how's your weekend, with, yeah, it was good, immediately. And then I'm like, oh, was it good? But the conversation's already moved on. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and then if that happens to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I lied.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because that is such a formality. Like, you want to answer honestly, obviously, but it's a formality. So, like, if you take that moment to think and you're like, hang on, it was actually a really hard weekend, and you go into, your difficulties, that it's like, well, I didn't actually want that answer. You were supposed to just be formal and say it was good.
Which I actually do most of the time. I'm like, wait, let me think about it. And normally people are okay with that. But, if I don't know them that well or whatever, then it's kind of weird.
If someone's like, how are you? I'm like, do you really want to know? Because like, sometimes I'll have to just say, ask them, are you just asking? Because I feel like with Jamila, it's like, I feel obligated to be truthful about my feelings. And I can just be like, oh, I'm fine, for some people, but the people I care about or whatever, I'm like, are you asking or not asking? Because we want to know. And because I'll give you what, the real truth. If you really want to know, I'll go there and divulge all the dirt. I don't know. I can be really private, but then I can also be really like blunt and open about it too. So I don't know. I think I fall on the ambivert, like I really could go either way with energy levels. So I don't know. But did that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it
makes sense.
That totally does. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually really interesting because I've often wondered how the FI dominant presents in the ISFP, because it's quite obvious for INFPs. You can see they have that stereotype of being the poet, and you can see like them thinking things through extensively. But having SE, I wonder how that manifests with like the FI at the top. And I'm getting a sense that like for Brady and I, it would be like an act before we think about that FI. But for you guys, it's like you have to filter the SE through the FI. So first you need to see, is this going to be authentic before I act? Would you resonate with that?
Yeah, that's it, 1000%.
Yeah, very much.
And so that could like lead to inaction, because we're just like, this isn't me. This isn't authentic. So
yeah, like the core functions, I do feel like, when you read them on a piece of paper, they're horizontal, but I feel like they're vertical. And, that FI and then the SE. And then so it's like when you're pouring water through that filter and it's like where the charcoal, all our functions. And then, it's just like, it just filters all the way through to the bottom. And, yeah, I just feel like it has to go that way.
The thing is,
I feel like we're very guarded about our IPs in general, I think, but on the FI side, very guarded about our identity. And so the idea, like Kristin, you were saying, I might just answer a question and then ask myself, well, do I really mean that? I feel like one of the reasons that on the IP side that we might like slow it down is because we're very cautious to make sure that whatever we say, whatever we do is an accurate representation of who we believe ourselves to be. And so, it's one of the things for me is like, I spend a lot of time, maybe unintentionally, but sort of pre-processing everything I think about, like everything under the sun, so that when I'm hit with a human interaction that I'm not expecting, and they might ask me a question, I don't have to sit around and think to make sure that my answer is consistent with who I am, because it's like, I've got this pre-processed, I know. So when I get hit with a question I don't have pre-processed, I'm like, I'm going to need some time on that.
This is really
so interesting.
I know. I was just going to say the same
fascinating.
thing. Yeah. So, like, for me, I just am myself always, whatever I say or do. It's like my actions are my identity. So, like, I don't think, like, oh, I need to make sure that I do or answer something this way because that's what I want to be. I'm just like, hey, if I'm doing something, that's who I am. Like, take it or leave it. This is me. And, I think that works for me because I like to be kind to people. But, if I wasn't kind and I was just impulsive and causing problems for people, then I can see how that would be a problem for others.
Yeah.
But
Brady,
I
I wonder
if
you could relate to like the struggle that I've had on the different side of the coin as the ISFPs, which is that because I'm acting first and then thinking later, but I do have that authenticity function. I might act and then later think back and be like, oh, I'm really annoyed that I acted that way, or I'm really annoyed that I said that actually wasn't true to who I was. But because I'm acting first, it's like, or I'll answer a question that someone's asked and the answer will be more like a people-pleasing answer. And then later I'll be really upset at myself. Brady's gone. I don't know if he's going to be able to. But anyway, that's my experience.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Brady's
Well,
going to answer this time. It's not me.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard any of that, but just that idea of like later coming back and being like, that wasn't the most authentic me, and it's probably just that difference really well explained of like SEFI versus FISE. You guys need to know it's authentic before that, whereas we're like acting and then it is authentic a lot of the time, but
Oh. We love you, Brady. Sorry about the technical issues. The thing is, for an ESFP to get into their FI, they have to slow down, and SETE hates slowing down. And so there's this conflict of interest. There can be some avoidance of FI until it hits you, and you're like, I did something inauthentic. Ooh. The action catches up to you.
Yeah, and it like really bothers us when that happens. I don't know if you can relate, Brady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so hopefully my internet lets me talk here. So yeah, no, it does bother me when that happens. I try my hardest not to be that way. And for those who know the Enneagram, like the different variants of social, sexual, and self-pres, I'm a social type 7, which means that I am a little bit more duty bound than your classic 7, which is kind of a weird combo with SE. So I'm always living in this world of like, I want to be doing what I want to do. But also there's this other side of me that's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. So it's like a lot of impulse, but no, pump the brakes on that. I can't do that. So that's kind of where my headspace is a lot of the time, which sounds awful, but it's actually kind of nice because it prevents me from getting in a lot of trouble. Because some of my impulses are not like healthy impulses.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
so
Makes sense. So the FI suppression that sometimes ESFPs do sometimes results in their relationship and how they feel about negative emotions. I know with some ESFPs, if it's like a bad timing to feel negative, or some ESFPs in general also can sometimes avoid negative emotion. With my ESFP mom, sometimes like she'll avoid sad music because it's like, I don't want to feel that way. And
Gosh, I
so
do
there
the
can be
same
this
thing.
like trying to slant things towards the more happy side with ESFPs.
mhm.
Oh gosh, I feel so seen.
Yeah, seriously, me too.
Wow.
That's
Yeah, I
actually
did that a
really
lot of my
funny.
early 20s.
No, I was just gonna say that's actually really funny because my husband always makes fun of me because I tend to really like sad music. But the interesting thing is that I can't confidently say that it makes me sad. Like, I just like it, and it just so happens to be very sad. And I don't know if you ISFPs relate to this, but I feel like somewhat of a stereotype is like, oh, FI DOMs listen to like a certain type of music to put them in a certain type of mood. But for me, it's kind of like I kind of create my own mood in terms of like sad or happy or whatever. And music sometimes can even be kind of a distraction. But so it's interesting, like if you have FI as an auxiliary that you're saying that, like, you know, you intentionally do that. And I'm wondering if it's kind of like, because it might be difficult to kind of grasp the emotion within yourself. So you're kind of like looking to grasp it in somewhere else or avoid it. And, you know, depending on whatever.
Yeah, for me, if that happened, it was always an avoidance because I had some kind of emotion that I wasn't processing or I knew was there, but I didn't want to let it out at that time because it would get in the way of whatever I was trying to do in that moment. But I knew if I listened to the sad music, the emotion would hit and then I'd have to like process it. So I could like ignore the emotion until it was convenient.
I find that I will often use music to pile on the emotion that I already have. So if if I'm going through a sad whatever moment or phase or whatever, I will find that I will gravitate to music that fits the mood that I'm already in to almost drive me deeper into that mood. Like I want to feel it to the deepest depth that I can possibly feel it. And then the music will not, like, changing the style of music would never, that I don't think would ever pull me out of that mood. It's only when I just wake up one morning and am suddenly in a completely different mood for no explanation, no, explainable reason at all. And then I'll be like, okay, we're changing the whole playlist now, because now I want to pile on this new feeling that I'm experiencing today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I relate to that.
I actually relate to that as well. Like when I've chosen to sit down and process the mood, I totally do that. I'll listen to sad music, and when I'm happy, I listen to happy music. And I wonder if that's like a SE thing because I know like INFPs and ENFPs who can be in their mood and they don't even notice what music is playing.
So while we're on music, can I ask you guys all a question? So I've asked a lot of I've asked a number of INFPs and ENFPs this question about like, what is it that initially makes you say, I like this song? And they tend to, the ones that I've experienced tend to say, well, I resonate with the lyrics, or if they're musicians, they might talk about, like the ENFPs will talk about the technical side of the music or whatever. And I'm just like, it makes my ears happy. That's it. Yeah. Like when I first hear a song, I'm like, that makes my ears happy. Then I might listen to the lyric, start paying attention to the lyrics and be like, okay, I can get on board with the lyrics or I can't. But for me, it's all just exactly how it immediately hits my ears.
That is very much what my experience is as well, Jason. So my wife's an ENFP and she definitely is like,
oh,
that was great. That timing was great. Well, I guess I'll take take over then as the other ESFP here. I was like, I already know Brady's answer to this. I relate to what you said, but instead of making my ears happy, it's more like makes my entire body happy. So if there's like a good beat or like a good bass line and I feel it like sort of take over and consume my body, good music. To me, it's just about beat.
Yeah, I definitely, for me too, it's the bass or the beat or the way the singer sounds, like the voice of the singer. Those are the first things that hit me. And then I'll go to the lyrics, and the lyrics are icing on the cake. But first of all, it's that like the beat, the tone. I'm not very musical at all. I can't carry a beat to save my life, and I don't even know like anything. So it's just, it has to penetrate my soul and get me moved somehow. And then I'm like, okay, yep, this is a good song. So
yeah, Jason's spot on with the NFPs. The NFPs that I know, what they'll do is when they send me a song, they'll also send me the lyrics with it underneath. It's because the lyrics are what make the song for them. I think like the meaning behind the song, they're trying to decipher that first before listening. They do listen to it, but I feel like what sticks out to NFPs for whatever reason is the lyrics, and they're able to tie that meaning instantly. They instantly understand like the underlying meaning of the lyrics. And that's what hits the NFPs first.
Yeah.
Brady, that was hilarious, your disappearance.
Yeah, that was quite the disappearing act. Amazing.
Mid-story at ESFP's nightmare. Like, they've got the floor.
No worries.
And what's sad right now is that you guys are all like 10, 15 seconds different as far as the visual than the audio. So I'm like so confused what's happening with facial expressions. It's an SE nightmare for sure. Yeah, I was just gonna actually, you pretty much said it. So my wife is an ENFP. I've said that on a few of these videos, and when she sends me music or we listen to music in the car, it's usually tied to some sort of social cause or like the lyrics are something that speak to how she's feeling in the moment. And the stuff I listen to, it has like nothing to do with what the lyrics are. Like it just doesn't matter to me. Like they said, if it makes my ears happy, I like it. No rhyme or reason, really.
I once was in a car with one of my friends who was an ENFP, and the song Some Nights by Fun came on. And you know how that's like it's got like a good beat and a good vibe. I sang every single lyric in that song and was just pumping and dancing in the car. And then at the end, he was like, what do you think those lyrics mean? And then I was like, I couldn't tell you what the lyrics are saying. Like, I sang them all. Don't know what the meaning is. They just make me feel good.
Right.
I find that the lyrics take on significance in time. Like there are some songs that I would say, these are some of my favorite songs because of what they say. But they had to clear the, I just like the way it sounds, gate like 100 times. And then one day I'm like, I wonder what this song is actually talking about. And then sometimes it'll really resonate with me on that level too, and become important to me.
Have you guys seen that? There's a Netflix series that just came out about pop music. I don't know if any of you have seen it or heard about it, but they were talking about like music they're making for like Britney Spears and boy bands and stuff, that they weren't worried about what the lyrics were really saying so much as did it fit the beat? Did it fit in the flow? So they would like cut short some of the meaning. I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, for me, it also like I love how the singer, how much emotion they're putting into their song, and that will move me. And then like half the time I don't even know what the lyrics are. And like one of my favorite performances is Tool. It's the YouTube video that they're live back in I think the 90s. And the song, I can't even remember now what's the song, but Maynard is singing on stage and he's like hunched over in this little onesie that he's wearing. What song is that? But just the way he's so engulfed in the theatrics of the song that he's singing and the emotion. It's just like, it will like just make me crazy. I've watched it over and over, and you can barely make out the words, what he's saying on stage, because it's live concert, but it's just like intense. And that's what I love, like when somebody's just pouring their heart and soul into the song, and you can feel the emotion more than hear it.
Yeah, it's raw. FI users gotta love that emotional cocktail that generates from things. And so I'm wondering, how does SE in the first slot differ from SE in the second slot?
This question fascinates me, and I'm so ready for the answer.
I mean,
Feeling a silence there.
I like the passing the buck. That was good.
I know for me, you know, I just have a history of being like big time, you know, procrastinator. Like I've been called lazy and all this type of stuff. And so I think, yeah, it's just really, Joyce Mang used this word earlier today for SE auxiliary, and she said it's basking. And I think that's a really good word, because I think a lot of times that's what it looks like for us, is just like basking in the moment and not necessarily doing anything about it, but just basking in it. But I think that the more that, you know, we mature and everything, then the more we turn the basking into action, and we use the SE to bring forth and manifest our FI desires and our NI vision. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's why Jamila has such a great singing channel now, because she turned the basking SE into proactive SE. And
Exactly.
I was wondering when the next plug was coming, Joyce.
Yeah.
No, I was
Yeah.
actually just thinking like all of us like have something, and I was like, okay, backseat TE, like we're all doing something. So yeah.
I think for me, I see the difference between auxiliary and dominant. It's like an attitude that you have about that function. So like for me in the dominant position, SE is just something I do. I don't think about it. I don't try to control it. I don't try to limit it unless it's like getting in the way, obviously. Whereas I would imagine for an ISFP, it's like, it's more of I have a responsibility to use my SE with the things I care about. So you almost have to like proactively initiate it. I would imagine that would be a difference, and I can't speak for ISFPs. But when I was in my journey of trying to think I'm an ISFP or an ESFP, I really noticed that when I was researching. Like I just do it. I don't think about it. I don't like have thoughts about should I act, should I not act. It's like I will act. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, it must be great.
Yeah, except for there's some side effects that aren't so great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's where the NI inferior comes. When you act so quickly and so fluidly, then you have regrets too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
like the mid and stuff like that. It's just not a good idea. Yeah, just in the moment, I'm just like, my SE needs something. One more show. Like,
yes,
I'll have another piece of candy. That kind of stuff. Yes. So that's kind of where it can go awry.
Or I'll stay at the party for one more hour, even though I now have work in 2 hours. This is fine.
Yeah. So although it is nice that you don't have to think too much about it, it is good because there's times when you're around friends and everything where you can be the goofball who does the belly flop off the high dive, and that's funny.
Yeah.
But then afterwards you're like, ouch.
Yes. You're like, I have an audience. People are looking at me. I can do this thing. Deal with the consequences later.
Yeah.
How funny.
Yeah, and that's what makes ESFPs kind of natural performers sometimes.
We don't think, our body just does it. It's like, that's me. It's how I would describe me. It's like I'm not performing a personality or something. It's me to a T, you know?
Yeah.
I relate to wanting to perform for people because I love kind of like making people laugh, and I'm kind of goofy and when you get to know me, but it takes a while to coax that out of me. Like I'll be the little kid sitting on the sideline watching always first and seeing, okay, is it safe to be that, clown, or not calling you guys a clown, but I mean like being
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
being the center of attention. Is it okay? Do I feel safe in this environment to do that thing, to be that goofy person? So I have to always, it's a process of thinking about it first, and then I'm like, okay, yeah. Or sometimes I'm like, I don't care if I look like a fool. I just feel like being goofy, and then I'll do the thing. But it definitely is always a thought process first.
Yeah. For introverts, they're more reflect, act, reflect. And for extroverts, they're more act, reflect, act. So it's a slight difference that makes all the world of difference.
Yeah, it sounds like ISFPs have like a more healthy use of SE though, in a sense. Like for me, it's like I can't help but do it. It's kind of like it owns me in a sense in a lot of situations. And like that bottom NI is like screaming at me, like, the pattern of how this is gonna turn out, And then later I'll do the thing, and then later I'll be like, my NI was there telling me I should have listened to it, but I couldn't. The moment was the only important thing to me. The future didn't exist, so.
Yeah, you said you feel like the RSC is more healthy or whatever, but it's funny because when y'all were talking about FI, I kind of felt similarly, because I think, Brady, you were the one who was saying, like, I don't think about who I am. Like, I just know that whatever I do, I'm just embodying who I am. And that's kind of a thing that I always have to tell myself is like, no, even people who don't even know about type have told me, like, Jamila, you're just always yourself. And I'm like, thank you. I really But at the same time, it's like, it's like, I feel like I'm trying to be, but at the same time, I know that I'm not, type of thing, because I recognize that I just am who I am. And I feel that way about everybody else. Like, you are who you are, so to speak. But like when it comes to incorporating, SE or what have you, then it's like I have to think about what is me. But at the same time, it's like, well, I know whatever I do is going to be me, but it's still like, as an introvert, I can't really trust the external world. So then I'm just stay, cooped up within myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That fear of having your identity misrepresented or not being in alignment with your identity makes ISFPs like kind of think about it a lot. It seems like
too much, and that's like so visceral for me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, if somebody perceives me as something that I don't think I am, it is such a hard thing for me. Probably the hardest thing for me in life is just like that. I don't want somebody to think I'm something that I don't think I am. And it's just like crazy. But yeah, it's like probably because we just work on ourselves or think about ourselves so much, like constantly. And then if I do something or say something and, somebody takes it a certain way, I'm like, no, that's not, and that's not me, and so, yeah, I just want to fight tooth and nail for that FI all the time. It just half the time I'm like, don't even worry about it. But then the other part of me is like, but I can't. I have to be truthful and let them know. And I'm like, no, who cares? So it's just like this constant struggle of that TEFI, where you guys, the struggles with the SENI, and so that's the biggest. Yeah, I don't know. You guys probably are much more not as worried about the people as much, probably, huh?
So that's something objective personality talks a lot about. Are you worried about people? Are you worried about things? And I remember that one really struck me when I was trying to determine my type, because I was like, not really all that worried about people. Like people, if they don't like who I am, that's on them. And I was like, that's not a very ISFP thing to say comparatively to an ESFP thing to say. So these are kind of some of the things that were really helping me with that.
Yeah, it's taken me 50 years to finally be like, who cares what people think? It's like a revelation for me, but it's taken me all my life to finally be like, who cares? And I still care, but I keep like I care less, I should say, now than I did when I was 20. Like when I was 20, it's totally, a total different person. Just so introverted and so scared of the people. Like even as a kid, I was the little girl that, I'd whisper to my mom to order food for me because there's no way I could talk to the waitress or there's no way I could talk to that person. So it's like, my dad would constantly be like, nope, if you don't tell them what you want, you're not going to get anything. And I'd just be like, and like, and face red and eyes watering up because I was terrified of the people. And it's taken years to just, come out and be like, screw the people. But
I wonder why that's...
don't screw the people.
No, I wonder why that's so different, because it seems quite different, because I relate to what Brady was saying in like not caring. Like I care about people, of course,
right?
But like, like even if someone in my life is upset with me or something, I'll be upset by that. But like my being upset only lasts like a day or something, and then I'm kind of like I'll make an action to fix it, or like I'll just sort of move on with my life, or like the next thing. It still affects me, and I still don't like it when I sit and think about it. But it's not like I wouldn't say I'm like losing sleep over people. Like again, like if people don't like me or something, then it's better for me that they're like, that's okay, whatever, But why? I wonder why that's so different, because our FI is second slot,
I think it's because you guys are so much more balanced in that FITE, and we're like off the charts imbalanced. For us, it's just identity, and all the people out there, are the massive, horrible humanity that's always judging us and coming to attack us and not think well of us and all these sorts of things. And it's over the last couple of years, I've really declared war on my addiction to identity and been like, I cannot live, I've lived 40 some odd years with this. It's got to go, because, waking up every day and going through I'm just going through every moment of your life being like, I have to be so guarded and cautious of what everybody thinks of me. I've got to make sure that I represent this identity that I see myself as inside so perfectly on the outside, so that everyone will know exactly who I am inside. It's like, that's exhausting. You just cannot, you can live that way, but it just wears you out, and lately I've just been like, I cannot do that. Now I've made like 2% progress in the last 2 years, but it's better than I was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow,
exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like Jason, I feel it. I like when you're talking about it, it's like I just feel that anxiety bubbling in me as you're expressing it, because it's so like that cauldron of me and the people. It's just like you wouldn't see it on the outside, because I get along fine with the people. You can throw me in a crowd of anyone and I can swim just fine. But it's that internal constant, like seesaw up and down and just constant. And it is so emotionally draining. And that's why, like, going out to a party or going out and doing things, it's like, when I come home, it's like detox and just like veg out for a day and no people, no phone calls. It's so, just energy levels just deplete after having to deal with that. So.
Yeah, it's like because FI is like Jason was saying so much about identity, and a lot of identity has to do with like how am I showing up to the world and how are they viewing who I am as a person. And so if you're like constantly thinking about that, then you're going to be in kind of a paralyzed state if it's not managed correctly. Where I feel like ESFPs, because you all kind of have that, lower, so to speak, then it's kind of like, oh no, I'm just going to show up to the world and then I assess if it's me or not. And then if it's not me, then now next time I show up, then I'll make sure I do it in a way that's more consistent with who I am. And I don't really care if people like it, so to speak, because I'm just showing up. I don't really like, y'all don't really, I feel like, reflect as much, whereas we're always thinking about, okay, how are we showing up? What do people think about us? Is what they think about us consistent with even like what our own values are? Like if I want to be this type of person, are people seeing me as the type of person that I want to be? Then if not, that sucks. And sometimes with the lower stack TE, then it's kind of like, well, I don't even know how to fix that. How do I be the person that I want? Or not even how do I be the person that I want to be, but how do I show up in a way that I want people to see me as? And I think, the answer to that is just doing it and kind of figuring it out as you go. But yeah.
That FI in the first slot wants the identity to be congruent. And you mentioned a really great point, Jamila, about when you have TE in the last slot, sometimes it can manifest as not knowing how to fix the situation if they aren't perceiving you the way that you want to be perceived. Like you don't know how to move the resources around you to work in your favor sometimes. And so that can be kind of paralyzing, and it can lead you to feel a little bit helpless to the judgment of the tribe. That's really scary. Yeah. Whereas I think ESFPs can also, because they lead with SE, they can just adapt to whatever judgment people are giving them. And then they can just work with it and go like with the TE higher up, you can also know how to fix it. You're like, okay, they have a poor perception of me now. I can fix it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. The problem I run across there though is because of that low NI, if I get in that, for me, that dreaded FI NI world, that's when all those things that happened before that I ignored, I feel like I have this montage of all the stupid stuff I did in front of everyone, like so that does happen to us too, like it's just, I feel like when it happens to us in a big, as objective personalities, a big tidal wave, it's like, oh no, like all my bad decisions piling up on me. And yeah, so that can be a bit rough. I don't even know why I started talking about that, but I did.
You're okay, Brady.
Thank you.
I actually, already be obvious, but I'm just curious, like, so Brady and Kristin, y'all keep talking about how you make bad decisions. And so I was wondering, like, Sheila and Jason, do y'all feel like, generally speaking, you don't make bad decisions, specifically actually making decisions and not like, oh, I regret that I didn't do this, but more so, I wish I didn't do this?
I definitely, when I was younger, I made some really dumb decisions. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh, I dated that guy. Oh my gosh, we all, I think there's some regrets. I always think, oh my gosh, that movie, No Regrets, but it's like,
yeah, no regrets. Yeah,
it's not regrets or whatever.
Yeah,
every time I say no regrets, that vision pops in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah. What was I saying?
No regret from your child.
Mistakes when you were young.
Yeah, I definitely made some bad choices in my life, but not often. And because that, and I kind of will kick in right away, like, oh, I don't know about that. Maybe, like, definitely get to the edge of the cliff and, you know, look and like, you know, and then back up. So, you know, and I will kick in a little quicker, but yeah, I think I think about the decisions first, and then, you know, we'll either jump off that edge of the cliff after like, okay, A, B, and C could happen. Ooh, is it worth it or not worth it? And I'm weighing it out. So, but there's definitely times in my life where I'm like, that didn't turn out so hot.
Yeah, I think I made a lot of bad decisions when I was young, and I think they were really born out of two aspects. One was that sort of maybe young FI identity that I didn't 100% know who I was yet. And so there was sort of that extroverted sensing, wanderlust, go out, explore the world, find out everything that's out there. And that will help me figure out who I am. And in the process made, you know, some really stupid decisions. And then also I think that fear of other human beings, you know, peer pressure is real when you're young. And so, I mean, it can be real at any age, but it's worse when you're young, I think. And so, you know, I made some bad decisions based on wanting people to think I was awesome, honestly, you know. And so as I've gotten older and gotten burned and learned the lessons that were available to be learned in those stupid decisions, sure, do I make decisions that I regret? Yeah, but probably far more infrequently than I did. And also the severity of them, or the severity of the consequences of them, is way less than it was when I was young, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I make bad decisions, but I'm much happier with the decisions I've been making the last 15 years of my life than I did the first.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, you know, decision making. There is, of course, a spectrum of how bad those decisions are. Like, I don't make really terrible decisions. I don't like steal cars and get chased by cops. You know, it's more like, again, I'll bring back that midnight nachos kind of thing. You know, like that's more the kind of bad decisions I'm talking about.
Got you.
Yeah. And then you're like, man, why doesn't that shirt fit anymore? You know, it's more like that kind of decision making.
I love the qualifier, the necessary qualifier.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
SE DOMs and that surprise pizza at midnight. It's like, hey, is everyone feeling like pizza? All right, I'm just gonna get a pizza. All right, now.
Yeah.
Jason,
I do
you
think a
said
big
mention-
difference, you guys were saying earlier about how you just sort of act, you know, and I feel like I'm much more of a look before I leap kind of person. So that is like, that prevents me from making, you know, it's 2 a.m. still time for one more bad decision type bad decisions, you know. I'm like, you know, I'm gonna think about it first, you know, and then usually talk myself out of something that I'm like, that probably isn't gonna work out well.
Yeah. And whereas I'm definitely the guy like on Jackass or Ridiculousness who would do something and run straight into a pole or something. I mean, that's me. Like, that's the kind of stuff I've done constantly and consistently.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And it's interesting what Jason was saying about when you were younger, you made decisions, but they were based on wanting other people to think that you were cool. So it's probably like that FI need to like have people think well of you in a sense, because I don't relate to that. And I wonder if, Brady, you would agree here. My decisions are based on what I want. Like, it's not like I'll look cool to this person. It's like, this is a thing I really want to do right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, other than like, you know, parental influences, because that plays a role too, of course, you know, like what your nurture was like. My parents were really loving, but they also were very much like follow rules, you know, so I wasn't really able to do crazy things. So I found my joy in breaking rules for the small things. You know, like, so.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask about Jason's first point. You were saying how, like, you kind of, any bad decision you made was because you were kind of trying on SE in a way to try to, like, figure out, you know, who you are. And I could definitely relate to that too. I mean, I'm still in my 20s, but like, in high school and everything like that, and really still now, to be honest. But so I was wondering if the ISFPs relate to that of like, oh, let's see who I am with when I do this, or like if I do this, is that like me or whatever. Because I feel like if I see that with FI DOMs a lot, it's like, especially INFPs, I think it's a little bit more obvious, but yeah.
I think because our first function is an external function and not an interior function, we don't have any kind of interior conversation with ourselves before doing something. It's not like, oh, hey, let's try this on to see who I am. Gotcha. It's like, let's do this thing, and then later we'll realize that's not who we were.
So I would agree. I'd agree with that, because like I look back at my friend groups when I was in college, and I went from like the computer science crowd to guys on the football team to all sort, like you name it, like where on the spectrum of cliques of people. But I wasn't realizing at the time. It wasn't until later I was like, oh yeah, it was probably just my FI trying to sort itself out while I was in college. You know, but in the moment it was just like, oh, this person's fun to be with. You know, like, oh, they're the one inviting me to go do this thing, you know, or they laugh at my jokes, you know, like it wasn't a whole lot of thought put into it.
Yeah, this goes back to Personality Hacker and how they talk about how introverts try to make the external world kind of line up with their internal world in some sense. So there's this reconciling an introvert has to do with seeing how does my inner world match with the outer world. And so introverts are kind of trying to bridge those differences within their own mind's conversation in the world. So introverts have more internal dialogue, whereas maybe extroverts experience first and then maybe do that. Or maybe, I don't know what step that is a part of. Yeah. When do you guys have internal dialogue? And what is it about typically when you have internal dialogue?
I literally, like, my teen years and my early 20s were just very like do. And then only when the consequences started to physically catch up with me in my external world was I then forced to look inside and then look at my actions and realize that there was that NI telling me something was off, and then like listen to it and be like, okay, that's not who I really was. But again, it was never really like an active conversation. It was just like this action is proving that this is who I am, or it's not. But it's through the action. It's like getting our internal world to kind of line up with the external world, like the opposite of what you said.
Yeah. I was going to say, for me, it's definitely like, you know, like if I'm sitting in front of the TV or in the kitchen or whatever, it's like, what do I want to be doing right now? You know, that's my internal dialogue. It's rarely like, you know, what does it mean that I'm in a job where I'm bored yet I stick with it? You know, like I don't think about that kind of stuff too much until it all smacks me right in the face and I'm forced to think about it.
Yeah.
So no, day to day I'm not making those connections or thinking about those connections. I mean, of course I do. We all do all these things, but it's just that's not like the predominant like thought process I have. It's usually just what do I want to do now.
Yeah, literally. And actually my best days, like the days where I feel my most self and my most happy and my most fulfilled when I go to bed, is when I've been out doing and I haven't had an internal dialogue of any description, but it's just been like doing things that I know make me happy and give me joy. So like doing things that I know I'm not, like my NI feels happy about, that I'm not going to regret later. I'm just out with my friends having a good time, having an excursion somewhere, just being present. And then I go to bed feeling really fulfilled. And I haven't thought once about like who I am or anything like that.
So would you say then you feel like when you have to ask yourself, who am I? Then that means that you probably had a bad day or maybe
not even joking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, if I'm ever having that conversation, it's usually when I'm sending an email. Yeah, I'm sending an email to my therapist. Like,
Legit.
I hope you will take this as a compliment. That sounds amazing. I mean, that just sounds like an awesome way to live life. I would love to be able to experience that. It sounds fantastic.
Because it's funny when you were describing it, I was like, no, I feel the same way, except when you got to the part at the very end. But even still, kind of like, I feel like a perfect day for me is like when I'm just really engaging and interacting with my external world and I'm not like stuck in my head. And I don't feel like, honestly, I don't feel like I make a lot of bad decisions, so to speak. And so I don't have to worry about, like, most of the time, like, oh, things I regret. Um, but so, yeah, I do agree that I feel most at peace when I feel like I've done a lot of things that make me happy. But I'm still thinking at the end of the day, especially like I'm thinking about everything that went on, but in a good way, like, oh, I really enjoyed that roller coaster. Oh, that was a great conversation that we had. Oh, it's interesting how they brought up that point. What does it say about me that like I moved my hand in this way when they said that or whatever. That's kind of the dialogue that might happen like after a good day.
That sounds nice to me too. Like that idea of like reflecting about your actions so you don't forget about them. So it's like a better way to catalog what you've done, what you've experienced. Like that sounds nice to me.
Absolutely.
That sounds peaceful in its own way.
Yeah, and there are a lot of downsides I found to living like constantly in the moment and not having that reflection naturally. For instance, like it'll catch up for me again, as Brady said, it hits you in the face. Like I'll get a message from a friend that I just haven't spoken to in 2 months or something because they haven't been part of my present in front of me world. And they'll be like, look, I'm feeling like hurt that you haven't reached out to me, or like, do you even want to be my friend or something? And that's because I haven't taken that time to reflect about like, okay, what is friendship? What does friendship mean? Like, what am I meant to do as a good friend? Like, that's a huge downside of SE Dom.
Well,
agreed.
It's like the SE DOMs live in a constant state of experiencing, and the FI DOMs live in a constant life of reflecting when they have the chance.
So
I have this book on my shelf that I bought quite a few years ago because, like, I have, so as, like an introverted person, I would rather just pour my energy into, a couple people, friend-wise. I don't, like, energy-wise, I don't want, okay, it's not that I don't want, I would love to have a bunch of friend groups, like this friend group and that friend group, when I see people that can just go, like they had this group or here, that I love that, but I could never do that. So I've only had a few good friends over the years. And so when I do have a close friend, I pour a lot into that friendship. And then when it goes sour, I'm just like, oh, so devastated. And, I have this book on my shelf. It's called The Power of a Positive Friend, because I'm like, I'm doing something wrong with the people here, like keeping friends and not burning those damn bridges all the time. And so it's like, I remember buying this book going, okay, please help me people, like help me be a better friend. But I do have, like one friend that I've had for 40 years. So it's not like I can't keep a friendship, but I think what I've noticed is, because I'm so worried about the people, I will give the people what I think the people want of me, and then I hold back the real me. And then when I feel comfortable enough with that person, then the real me starts coming out. And then all of a sudden they're like, where did that come from? Or who are you? Like, and I'm like, well, this has always been me, but I just haven't shown it. And so that's my bad. That's on me for not being, coming out with what's really in there. And sometimes I probably could scare people with that FI, but yeah, it's definitely, I always feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but sorry. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Would you guys, you ISFPs, would you say that your feelings get hurt easily? And if so, or if not, like what does it take to hurt your feelings? Because I think FI has this stereotype of being quite sensitive.
Honestly, I would say, I want to say yes and no, because I think I'm a very sensitive person, but at the same time, I feel like in a lot of ways. I can be an apathetic person. But I don't know, like things that hurt my feeling, like I'm very sensitive to criticism. But at the same time, like more than anything, I would want somebody to be honest with me. Like, so I definitely prefer like honesty than just like fluff or whatever. That's not, I feel like substantial. So yeah, I don't really know if that answers your question, but I do still resonate with the idea of like, oh, you know, FI DOMs, especially being sensitive, like I'm always crying and everything. Like I do fit the stereotype for sure. But at the same time, I think, I don't know, I still can have kind of a detached perspective on certain things, whether it has to do with me or other people, to kind of look at it like in an objective way, or like, you know, this is the reality of the situation. And then sometimes when it is like one situation, it's like, if I make spaghetti, a food analogy, if I make spaghetti and and Denzel's like, did you do, my husband, if he's like, oh, did you, you know, use a different sauce? And I'm like, what do you mean did I use a different sauce? A part of me is like offended, but then the other part of me in my head, I'm like, Jamila, you know, he's not saying that you're a terrible cook or like you're a bad wife because you can't make a single, you know, dish of spaghetti. But then again, the other part is like, no, but he don't like my spaghetti, so I'm upset now. So it's kind of like always these conflicting things within me. And, you know, Coco, you know, the movie, it really made me cry. That was a beautiful movie. So yeah.
Thank you.
I will say that I have historically gotten my feelings hurt. Kind of can't remember if it was Jamila or Sheila earlier said something that was along these lines, I think, if I remember correctly, of it's that wanting people to identify me correctly as I have identified myself. So when somebody says something, like I won't get my feelings hurt if I feel like, man, I'm really being lazy, and somebody comes along and is like, hey, you're lazy. It's not going to hurt my feelings because I'm really like, yeah, you're right. But if I believe myself to be X and someone comes along and says you're Y, you know, and the more stock I put in that person's opinion, or the closer I am to that person, or the more I believe that person should know my true identity, and then they get it wrong, that just, I mean, that can like derail me historically for days. Now, because I've been working so hard to get past that, like, you know, in Objective Personality, Dave and Shannon talk about getting over everything in 20 minutes. Like, never let something, you know, mess you up for more than 20 minutes. And I'm like, you've got to get to 20 minutes, you know, where I can get over something that fast. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. But if I don't have any great respect for a person's opinion, say what you want. I don't care. It's not going to affect me in the least.
Yeah, it's 100%. Like, if I know I'm weak in a subject, then, and they call me out on it, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, or even I'm on the defense a lot when I meet people or when I'm with friends. I will all of a sudden just throw out all the, you know, the bad of me, you know, like, oh, I'm such a blah, 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 just to kind of throw myself under the bus before they have a chance to throw me under the bus. So I almost feel like I'm on the defense a lot in life. Much better now, but that's just been my MO for years. Like, I'll just be like, oh yeah, I'm a total lazy ass, so I'll just lay on the couch, you know. And so, and yeah, then if somebody wants to call me lazy, I've already called myself lazy or something. But yeah, if I know it to be true, I won't take it as, you know, I'm like, I have pretty thick skin. But yeah, if 100%, Jason, 100%. Yeah, that will send me for days. I'll just be stewing and I'll be like, I can't believe they said, you know, my husband will be like, you know, I'm still on that. I'm like, yeah, but can you believe it? You know, yeah, it's like all this energy wasted. That's just wasted.
It's just so interesting because I never really saw that as being sensitive. I just am like, no, you said something about me that wasn't true. Like, I feel like I have a right to be offended by that. To me, I never categorized that in the sensitive category. It's like, no, like I said, you said this about me, it's not true. And now I want to tell you why it's not true. Like, I will, like, you know, metaphorically pull out a PowerPoint slide, like, because you're not about to say that about me. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a good takeaway from this is if your ISFP is reacting, then maybe it has to do with your identity taking a hit. And so maybe it'll allow people who are trying to communicate with ISFPs better communicate them by realizing, oh, they seem like they're in a swing right now, in a negative swing. It's most likely about identity. And so how can, that just clarifies things in terms of communication for other people trying to understand you guys, making it more practical, as Jason was putting it at the beginning.
So can I ask a question for Kristin and Brady? Like, we here on the bottom row, we're doing a lot of processing of people. Like, you know, how are we perceived by people, and how does that affect us, and so on and so forth. So when we're talking about that, are you guys resonating at all, or are you guys like, wow, that's weird? Or, you know, I'm just curious.
I resonate with some of it, but not all of it. So, like, I resonate with if someone says something about me and it's true, it's like, yeah, I need to get my act together. Like, I've always, the big phrase that my wife and I use together is say what you mean and mean what you say. So just keep it honest, keep it direct, you know, like, don't play games with the words that you use. It's when people aren't willing to tell me something, you know, and it's been stewing and brewing behind the scenes, and then they bring it up. For me, that's when my feelings get hurt. It's not about, like, me as a person. It's more just like, you let me do all those actions all that time and didn't say anything, you know,
absolutely.
like, you know, that's for me when I get hurt. I do get hurt. I do get my feelings hurt. Absolutely. It's not a lot, but, you know, I think we use all functions. You know, everybody does. Just a matter of where in the continuum you are or what you prefer.
I think an interesting thing about ESFPs is that we have SETE and higher slots, so we are faster to act and faster to process things. So I think for me, if I get upset, I will act on the solution immediately. If someone's upset my feelings, like hurt my feelings, which usually is because they've said something against who I know to be. So they've said something that just isn't true. And then I'm like, yo, that's not true. Let's talk about it. I know that the thing to do is bring it up with them immediately. And then if I talk it out with them, I feel better, like, straight away. Same. But naturally, as Brady said, like, I then expect people to do the same to me. So when they stew on it for days, I'm like, if you just brought it up at the time, we could have saved so much like hardship or whatever. And I think that's because, the SETE being in those higher slots probably. Yeah. But no, Jason, in answer to your question, I totally, like, I'm not sitting here thinking like you guys are weird or something. I'm resonating with, to some degree, to everything that you're saying. It's like I relate a little bit, but it's just a slightly different take. And, like, I'm very interested and engaged in this conversation as well, because it's specifically relevant to me and my experience. So it's very interesting. As opposed to if we were talking about, I don't know, something I didn't care about, I would have S'd out by now. I would have been.
I hope you didn't take my question as me thinking that you guys were disinterested or anything. I was just curious, really, the degree to which, you know, there was an overlap there, at the degree to which there was any kind of disconnect.
I think that what it is for me is, like, I do feel those same things, but I just don't think it for very long. You know, like, it's not something I process for long. It's like, it'll happen, and then, like, time to TE this bad boy. You know, like, let's just do it. I don't like it to simmer. I don't like it to sit, just like the whole silences thing we were talking about earlier. You know, it's just like, let's just make it happen. Let's fix this problem. Let's talk, you know, let's talk over, and I don't want it to fester.
Yeah, and that doesn't work for me. Like, if I'm feeling in a certain emotion or really upset, I can't talk about that emotion right then. I have to go, retreat, process, get it all worked out, and then I can come out and talk. And like, that's been the biggest disconnect with my husband and I, is he's like, let's talk about it. And he's chasing me around the house. You know, I'm mad and want to like break a window. And he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. You know, like, it's like, you know, shut the door and keep him out. And then he's like, comes in the room and he's like, we got to work this out. We got to, talk it out. And I'm like, no, we don't. And then I'm like running down the street. I'm in the feels. Like, I can't. I have to process it all before I can come out to the world, and then I can talk about it, and then I can, But yeah, no, I just can't do it in the moment. No way.
Yeah, see, that tortures us when someone does that to us. It's like,
oh my god! Oh my god!
But this MBTI is great.
I can't handle it.
The other person needs.
The ISFP has to let their emotions fully bake. Back to the food metaphors again.
And it's a good way to do things, because sometimes I'll actually try and fix it in the moment, but I'll talk out what I think my feelings are, and then later I'll realize I hadn't really processed, and there was actually something else I wanted to say / another feeling that was really under the surface that I then need to go back and then re-bring it up, and then that can be,
Yeah, our feelings to me is like that really fragile souffle in the oven, where you have to tiptoe in the house, because if you walk around too hard in the house while that souffle is baking, it's going to just flatten out. So
interesting.
More food analogy there for you guys. Inside joke from earlier today, like, Joyce, you tell them, because I can't talk.
Yeah, so the joke is, like, SE users are more prone to making food analogies than NE users, I find.
And
for whatever reason.
Because we're linking it to our tangible experience in some way.
Yeah.
And then looking like into the NI meaning of it, or symbol of it, or whatever. It's funny because talking about being sensitive to like what people say, like, I understand what you're saying, like, kind of beating people, Sheila, sorry, kind of beating people to the punch so that way they can't make fun of you or whatever, or like comment on something that you haven't already like made peace with within yourself, so to speak. But even still, like, a lot of times I find that for me, I'm more sensitive about things like that I'm not necessarily, either things that I'm not proud of within myself / things that I do or say that I feel like aren't truly reflective of who I am as a person, and somebody like brings attention to it, and I'm like, oh my gosh. As opposed to like, if, somebody misinterprets something completely that I do not associate with at all, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's not me, and this is why. But if I do feel like I somewhat resonate with it, or I see how I like, said or did something that would make it seem like that's the type of person I am, and I already don't like that, and somebody brings attention to it, then it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. Like, how do people even put up with me? Who am I? Like, it's just this whole thing.
There's also a saying that introverts are so hard on themselves already that if an external source is hard on top of how hard they are already on themselves, then they just crush under the weight of judgment. And, FI is a judgment function, so it's going to have like that extra critical self-criticism at times, and it can be kind of self-eviscerating. So if someone else also dogpiles their judgment on it too, that they might just kind of collapse, like a building collapsing.
Or like a souffle.
I had a manager for years that would say to me, I never need to criticize you because I'll never be as hard on you as you are on yourself. And like that, I just ripped myself apart every day, judging my own actions every day. Like, I'm not good enough, not good at, not in a like comparing myself to anyone else, but comparing myself to the standard that I had set for myself. Like, I'm not living up to my own standard.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why FI is highly associated with integrity. So it's noticing if you're staying in integrity with yourself. And the thing is, because it's a self-created standard, if you judge yourself, then other people can't really help sometimes because they might try to go like, no, that's not true. But at the end of the day, it's your internally created standard, so they won't get it. And so they won't have enough influence to be able to change how you're viewing the situation. Which is why FI, when it goes down a negative spiral, sometimes you can try to consolidate it, you can try to make them feel better, but sometimes you really just have to wait it out or wait for it to process. Mm-hmm.
Very true.
I just want to ask quickly, ISFPs, what do you think like the biggest difference is between like you and INFPs in the sense of that SE supporting the FI compared to the NE supporting the FI? I don't know if this is too big a question.
I'm married to an INFP, and the one thing that I see different is she's a dreamer. She's always chasing a new idea, and those new ideas are they're very much fed into her values. They're based on her value system. So she has a very strong value system, and she's chasing ideas that align with that all the time. For me, that's overwhelming at times, and it's taken us a lot of years to work through that because she's just an idea machine, and I'm like, whoa, I can't resolve the sensory that is necessary to try to process all of those ideas, because for her an idea might be like, we could do this, and I'm like, okay, but if we do that, we have to do that requires this sensory action and this sensory action, and it's just like, that's overwhelming to me. I can't handle that, and so for me, I'm not really looking for new ideas a lot. I will chase experiences, but within reason. I'm not gonna go jump off a cliff just because it sounds like fun, but I will chase experiences. But she chases ideas, and those two things sometimes can really be hard to resolve between me and her, or at least they used to be. I don't know if that touches on your question.
Oh, that's
hopefully.
very helpful. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So, who here has jumped off a cliff?
Me!
I have.
I loved it.
Now, I don't know how high you're talking about when you say that, but I've done just like the 50, 60 foot like into the water kind of thing.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say just because that's a pretty big jump, but
That's
not compared to like those huge ones that you see people do. I haven't done anything like that.
Well,
I haven't done that.
50 is pretty big, so.
Yeah. I mean, it was scary when I looked down, but then I just didn't think about it and was just like, all right, I'm doing this.
Yes, so. And then the adrenaline, so good.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to Sorry, it was a bug. Okay, it's hard for me to articulate the differences I see between me and INFPs, but it's really funny, Jason, that you specifically said you're welcome to new experiences and she's welcome to new ideas. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, because one of my best friends is INFP, and she doesn't know pretty much anything about type at all. But that's literally what she said. She's like, "Yeah, you're really open to experiences, and new experiences, and I'm really open to new ideas." And I always feel like, I am too open to new ideas, but I definitely feel like any is different. Like I said, it's kind of hard for me to articulate. But I definitely am, I guess, more of an experiential kind of learner and processor than she is. She's definitely more heady and almost wordy in a sense, where I'm like, oh, let's go do this, let's go do that. And she's like, I mean, I don't need to. I can just like think and brainstorm and talk and everything.
Yeah. For some ISFPs and some INFPs, one way you can tell them apart is verbosity. Some ISFPs will talk a little less, and when they talk, they'll take a pause within their sentence. Like with Sheila, you'll notice she'll talk a little bit, collect herself, and then talk. And with INFPs, they don't tend to have that pause. It's almost like she wants the idea to be fully formed before she starts talking again. Whereas an E can talk while they're forming the idea. So they're talking as they're forming the idea. And so that's a little bit of the difference.
Yeah, just look at the comment sections on any of your YouTube channels, and it's like if it comes from an NE, you know, you're gonna get a lot more words. I mean, and it's true with the conversations too. You know, I always laugh when I see someone being like, I think I'm an INFP, and then there's like 3 paragraphs, and it's like, yeah, you probably are. You know.
Yeah, something I hear from any users is when they're in college or university, their problem was they would write too many words for essays and they'd have to learn to narrow down. So they're like, oh, I always go over the page limit. Whereas sometimes for SE and I users, it'll take a bit to get to the word limit. So it's the opposite way around. Sometimes like they have that main NI concept and then now they have to keep adding to it to make sure it hits the word limit.
Yeah, relatable.
Yeah, we need to add the fillers, you know, like the filler episodes. Got to throw those in there because it's
if I had to write a paper, I'm definitely looking up more adjectives to add in to make it, you know, more words. It's just hard because it's like, and I just wants to get to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, or looking up like more sources to throw in, like external sources to just chuck in to say something.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm always worried about like
word vomiting, you know, just constant. And I can't. It's just, or I can go off on tangents, but I'm always aware of, you know, wanting to come back and circle back. Jen, you know.
Yeah, NAs don't seem to care if they circle back. I'm like, are you going to get back to the point we were talking about?
Yeah.
See, the key is sometimes there's no point. Like they don't have a previously made point. The point is made as they're talking.
Yeah, so true.
That is why.
Cool stuff. And so thank you everyone for coming out and sharing these lovely differences between the ESFP and ISFP personality. Now, it seems like the ISFPs like to reflect a little more before acting. There's a little more caution, a little more looking before leaping, a little more reflecting, and really thinking about your identity and how it fits into the world. Who am I? What do I value? And is that getting across to other people? There's this pedanticness with not wanting to misrepresent yourself. You want some sort of congruence with how people see you, with how you actually are. And so there's this drive for authenticity that you can't turn off. That's always processing if what you're doing is authentic or within your integrity as a person. So that's really awesome. And that's amazing. Your internal dialogue is so rich and it is filled with meat and potatoes, as Sheila puts it. Yeah. Whereas the ESFPs make sure that we all have a good time. There's this amazingness. Like when they enter a room, I can tell someone's an ESFP because the vibe of the room instantly turns up 100 times better. Literally, it's a mood enhancer. I kind of call ESFPs like when you're in a car and let's say it was feeling stale, but now you have the air freshener in your car, or you have that minty pine tree scented freshener in your car, and ESFPs freshen up any situation they're in.
Nice.
They enliven it. They refresh it. They make it new again. So it's almost like their ability to bring novel experiences to people makes the feeling of the room change into one that's more lightening. It's like this jovial atmosphere. You can just feel the presence of an ESFP. As you can tell in Kristin's YouTube videos, her presence in the videos are so nice. Like it feels like you're a fun person to be around and a pleasant person to be around. And people kind of like you off the bat. And that works really well with the skits that you're doing, those comedy skits. Because your FI is able to embody the different types and kind of try on the identities of different types. And your SE is able to enact those experiences into a video and to provide that spontaneity, that improv, that adaptability that serves you really well with your craft. It's what makes you a master at those comedy sketches. Yeah. With Kristin, her videos are not only funny, but they're the most accurate, like 16 personality skits out there right now. For some of the 16 personality skits, sometimes they're just funny, but they're not that accurate. With Kristin's, it's the most accurate out of all of the 16 personality skits, if you're going to watch them. But I don't mean to put pressure on you. No pressure. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Joyce. I've actually, funnily enough, really struggled with presenting ISFPs. Like, and you might notice, like, I actually like go with the stereotype for a lot of the ISFPs because I kind of just don't understand the difference between us and them. But like, this has been hugely informative for me, like understanding ISFPs. It's been awesome chatting to you guys.
My ISFP friends that I have that have seen your videos said that the one in the car was like spot on. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen that one, but yeah, that one was good.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Cheers to your friend.
Yeah.
That's funny. I just remembered the car, literally the ISFP in the car, all they were doing was listening to vibey music and smiling while driving.
Yeah, and if singing, like the words would dictate where they went, kind of. Yeah.
Oh, right.
If I remember right.
Yeah, the basking in the vibe.
Yeah. So thank you, ESFPs, for your smooth delivery. You're able to cover up silences, but do it in a very smooth way. You're able to, like, whenever a situation goes awry, you're able to kind of flip it over sometimes. You're like, I can make the most of this situation. So your ability to make the most of the moment allows you to recover from very awkward situations. You're just like, all right, I know how to turn the tables, and your SETE is very confident, and then it can sometimes shift a bad situation very well. And so, yeah, Brady, thanks for being a part of my videos. It's interesting how you have both a humorous and funny side and also a very real and vulnerable and honest side. So people, the viewers, get to see both sides of you, both coins of you. 100%. It's interesting how you're able to, like, even with chronic illness, psoriatic arthritis, you're able to kind of smile through it and power through it. With ESFPs or like EPs in general, especially like ESFPs and ENFPs, when they're suffering, like, it's sometimes people can't tell around them. Like, it's actually like they put on a smile and put on a good front or a jovial, happy front when they're really suffering inside, which is very fascinating. And so, I don't know, it's very, very interesting, the applaudable behavior. Also, Sheila's back. And
one of my favorite parts of these panels is the FE Joyce speech at the end of them.
Oh, I love them. I love it.
It's great. Avalanche speech.
Yes. I always look forward to it. Shower me with the praise. Shower me.
Oh, I love that. I love how, like, ESFPs can build on a situation to kind of, it's almost like EPs are natural momentum builders. It's almost like Kristin will make a joke and then Brady will add on to the joke, and then they're like, it creates like this extra good time. Good vibes, man. Good vibes. Yeah. And Sheila, thank you for those food metaphors. You're on a roll with your souffle, your mashed potatoes. I felt like I had a full course meal with you. A metaphorical meal. And you have this really self-reflective quality to you. Like, sometimes you'll talk, but you'll want to pause because you want to really collect what you're going to say and say it in a way in which you intended. With NI, I noticed that it conveys its point with a lot of purpose and intentionality. So you're pausing until that thought's at 100%, like it's 100% loaded, and then you'll continue talking. And I love that measuredness to you. It shows that when you talk, it holds weight because you put so much thought into what you have to say. And also, you're very aesthetic, like down to like everything you do, literally everything. Your life is an aesthetic signature on the world. So it's awesome.
You're so funny. Thank you.
Go shizzle. And Jason, your channel is really grand spanking good with your knowledge on the cognitive functions. It's explained so clearly and practically, and that shows your proficiency with understanding the core of the types, which is the cognitive functions, and your ability to unpack the cognitive reasoning, especially of yourself. Your ability to describe yourself is unparalleled. Like when you speak, it actually, like, you're clearly conveying who you are very well, which is like what you try your hardest to do, and what you're doing really well is articulating who you are with skill. And in this panel, you really showed how you were able to explain your inner mind's working and your identity in a way that we were able to understand. And yeah, your identity makes an impact, because what it helps us do is it helps us understand what matters to you. And so perhaps that can influence and ripple effect on other people, so that they are able to see your universe and your world more, so that they're able to honor those values that you have more, because they see the beauty in it too. What ISFPs are really good at bringing to the world is beauty. FI is imbued with this emotional significance. And so when other people comprehend your identity and who you are, it's almost like getting into someone's sacred world almost. And so it makes us want to honor it more, because we're able to see how sacred it is to you, that we make sure that we honor it as if it is so, because it is so. And so, I don't know, it's just amazing to peer into someone's inner life like that. So yeah, thanks for putting yourself on the internet and making good ISFP content.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Jamila is like a songstress, a songstress from the heavens above. Her voice is like liquid gold. ISFPs and their SE, man, it's able to kind of know how to convey something in the most aesthetic way possible. So I noticed that the way Jamila sings is not only aesthetic, but it's also very stylistic. Jamila has her style, and she sings at that style. It's really fantastical. It's almost like FI is able to make fantasy a reality through being able to figure out their own way of bringing out their own individual person into everything that they go into. It's almost like they bring a little piece of them everywhere, which is nice, because it's personality. It's bringing personality to the forefront of the world. Personality reminds people of what it's like to be human. You know, Sheila was talking earlier about how beautiful a song is when it's raw and when it's emotional. And I feel like FI DOMs are like the best at really conveying that raw emotional part of themselves in a way that's true to them. Like it's able to align with all parts of themselves as they're conveying it. That type of authenticity, that radical authenticity, and that vulnerability, and that type of ability to bring out your identity and to showcase it for other people, shows people a new way of living for a moment in time. And so it's really nice to have that. And so yeah, Jamila's singing channel will also be located down below as well. So I'll have everyone's channels there if you want to check them out. They are great contributors to the type community. So yeah, go do so. And
thanks, Joyce.
Thank you everyone for showing up.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Joyce.
Yay. And I'll see you all in the next episode.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Fighting to keep us together, hope it's worth a try. You ain't always been an angel, but heaven's on our side. I got my demons too, I know just how you feel. You can be real with me, that's why you're still with me. Can't hide behind the carrots on a diamond ring. I don't even care if you lie to me, cause there ain't much to kiss but me these days. I say I do just to say I don't. Don't give me a reason to go through your phone. This is deeper than you and other women. This is daddy issues. No, this is years of putting up with the wrong type of men. So hold on, don't let me go. Hold on, hold on. Hold on, don't let me go. Hold on. You tell me you love me, well tell me again. I need the reassurance every now and then. Love ain't a game full of X's and O's. But I done been played before, made mistakes before. Gave it up to somebody who didn't deserve my body. You gon' have to lend a shoulder, help me kill this thing over. I believe your love for me exceeds needs, and you gon' take responsibilities of my healing, how I'm feeling. Don't go trading years that we put in. So hold on, don't let me go. Hold on. Hold on, don't let me go. Hold on. Okay, all right, that was the one.
That was good. That was really good.
That was the one.